Hello everybody, it is Tuesday the 28th of October. Right, I want to talk one more time about the problem with Christianity. There is a big problem with Christianity, and the problem with Paul, where many talk about Paul as the false prophet. I think I've done that myself. I've come to a realization is that what Paul said was probably the truth, as far as he could perceive it. Really, for a prophet, it really depends on how good a medium they are, to receive the message and to convey it without distorting it by their own self. But what he said was probably truth. See, what you need to look at is what Paul was connected to at that time. Whose truth was he speaking? That is what you need to see. Especially when you're following the teachings of Paul, where it would lead you. What the outcome would be. Now, at the moment, there are different versions of what might have happened. To explain that story. Now, I've been at it for over 10 years trying to explain that story. And I've been going around in circles in the wilderness. I really have. And every time you make a circle, you see a picture emerging. Yeah? New information, you gather new information, you put new puzzle pieces into it, and a new picture emerges. So what I have been saying over the years has changed. And it has to change. With every new piece of information, the entire picture shifts. And I'm still not at the point where I would now sit here and proclaim this is the one and only truth. This is the complete picture. I'm not saying that. But I want to do a bit of a stock take, really, in this video to see what picture it is I'm seeing now. And that's what the problem is with Christianity, and what the problem is with Paul, and what people do not understand, to my mind. So first of all, there is, as I say, there are different stories in this world at the moment trying to explain what happened there. You've got the carnal ones, the totally material ones, people that actually call themselves historians, that go purely by the material reality of what happened there and explaining it from there. And actually saying, well, we are not going into all that spooky stuff. We stick with the material facts. Yeah? So if that is what you're doing, what the hell are you doing in a spiritual story? Looking at a spiritual story. The whole point of that story is that it goes beyond the material. Well, if you don't want to look at that, what are you doing in that story? Stick to material science. Stay out of spiritual texts. Yeah? So then you come to things like, if Jesus is in the tomb, well, the stone was not moved by angels, it was moved by somebody. Somebody physically removed the body. And then when Jesus reappears, looking somewhat different, that is what the text says. They did not recognize him. Then to the material mind, straight away, well, there was a switch. Somebody else came and pretended to be Jesus. And they believed him. So the whole thing was a total con trick. At the same time, they're proclaiming that Jesus was a great teacher and fantastic human being, but apparently he was a con man. Make up your mind. Really, make up your mind. If you go by the spiritual explanation of this, and I'll come to this later, the fact that he looked different actually makes perfect sense. In fact, if there had been a change, as proclaimed, a change of consciousness, the birth of a new consciousness, the death of an old consciousness and the birth of a new consciousness, then he should have looked different. He absolutely should have looked different. It would have been wrong if he hadn't looked different. Now, in the story, there is a lot that is material. And again, that is because there is no separation. That is exactly what Jesus showed. There is no separation. The spirit, the energy, thought, emotion, our spiritual being is the source of the material world. The spiritual being is the cause. The material world is the effect. And cause and effect are absolutely not separated. They are directly linked. There is no separation between the spiritual and the material. None. That is actually clearly what Jesus showed. There is no separation. And that we must become aware of what it is we are doing in the spiritual, to see that we are the creators of the outcome, and to know what it is we are doing. And not there's a material world materializing around us that has nothing to do with us. Somebody else is doing it. Well, we're being influenced, yes, but we are the ones doing it. Take responsibility for what you are. See what you are and take responsibility for it. Right. Okay, now again, in this story, there are two different versions of what Jesus came from, or what he was. You've got the Essene story, which Jesus was an Essene. That means he was part of a community that had separated itself. Sorry, I still have this. I'm on antibiotics now, but I still have a chest infection. Sorry. So, yeah, he was in a community that was separated, and that developed their own teachings, their own knowledge in separation somewhere in the desert. Yeah? There is another story. That is the story of the Aquarian Gospel. And that is, I think, a very old story. And that is that the missing years of Jesus, yeah, from when he taught as a child in the temple to the moment where he reappeared as a 30-something-year-old. That he was going around the world, most likely with John of Arimathea, to learn from the masters, the spiritual masters in this world. There is an anthem here in Britain that people sing with gusto. Actually, the women here of the Women's Institute, which is linked to the Masons, yeah, it's like their women's place. The Masons are high up there, on high degrees, creating a world, and the women do jam in Jerusalem. Nice one. But this anthem that they sing, and that people sing on occasions, and they sing it with gusto, the words are by William Blake, who was obviously British. Well, people say occultist, I would say spiritualist. Occult, it only means that which is hidden, which means that is what you cannot see, which is not material. But it has got some really bad vibes to it now. Spiritual is a better word. at the moment. They mean the same. So, the words by William Blake of this anthem, Jerusalem. And the very first verse, "And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountains green? And was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the countenance divine shine forth upon our clouded hills? And was Jerusalem built here amongst those dark satanic mills?" There is the story. People are singing that. They're putting a lot of emotion into singing those words. I wonder if they know what it is they're saying. Again, there's this unconscious thing. They speak words, they put emotions into it, and I would say they're clueless. I was actually, until very recently, clueless that the words actually came from William Blake. The moment I realized that, I was like, whoa, what the hell have we here? So there is a story of Jesus traveling the world. And actually, in his teaching, that makes sense, because there are a lot of elements from other cultures, a lot of Eastern tradition in that. He was supposed to have been in India. So we have a story here of a guy, and I was this morning I was starting to look at John of Arimathea, because he was a very wealthy and a very influential guy, somebody who could pull strings. And he was like the financial backing behind the entire operation. To me, it looks a bit like that, They weren't that different from us. So to take one guy to gather the knowledge of the world, so that the knowledge of the world is in one person, no longer spread across the globe, but concentrated in one person. And to me, that story makes more sense. Because of the outcome, because of what he did, because we can see elements of other traditions and what he was saying and doing. So he comes back. He is on a mission, and that is one thing you have to clearly see. All that gathering of knowledge was to a purpose. And again, Jesus is clearly saying what he is doing. He is revealing God. He will reach God, and he will reveal the truth of God. That is his mission. That is what he's doing with that knowledge. That was the entire purpose of gathering that knowledge. To go on that mission. The revelation of God. On the spiritual path. And here comes. If we say God, a being, again, we are not talking about the Creator. We're not talking about all. One specific part that is ruling or influencing this world, that he is going to reveal. That is not part of this world now. He clearly says that the kingdom of my Father is not of this world. So now we're really starting, we need to start looking at this thing at best as a spiritual sci-fi story. Yeah? Do not go and confess the Spirit, and then deny the power thereof. Either this is real or it's not. Either this is a part of reality or it's not. Make up your mind. Do not be material and then try to explain that story, because that story is only partly material. Material is the outcome. Do not do that. You have no business being in that story if you do not believe on the power of the Spirit. of that other part of our reality. Believe on that other part of our reality, that we are more. We are physical, but we are more than physical. There is no separation. So this was the whole point. That was the gathering of knowledge, the coming back, the revelation of God, because that is what is revealed in the book of the Revelation. That was the aim. And in order to do so, there needs to be a shift of consciousness. Yeah? An expansion, and actually more than an expansion, it was actually an entire shift from one thing to another. He became something different. Not human. We are human consciousness. Well, we're holding on by a thread, but I think we still are that. He became something different. And then comes the way, and here's where the discrepancies in the Bible actually come in. Why there are that the discrepancies that people are so busy trying to explain away, instead of seeing why they are there. Don't explain them away. So you have the discrepancy between you should love your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul or whatever, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. And then you have the discrepancy of those that should follow me should hate their mother and father, their friend, even their own life. There is a discrepancy there, clearly. People are trying to explain that away. Jesus is all compassion. He's all love. He didn't mean hate when he says hate. No, he meant it. Darlings, he meant it. He meant hate. Because that is the shift. Where you detach from this reality, your consciousness changes. You detach from this reality. You let go of it to enter into a new form of consciousness that will reveal a different world. He shifted. So then, again, here it is. He was working on himself. He was working on his own consciousness. You cannot be of two minds. Nothing worse than a two-minded person. You have to speak, do, feel as if your wish is already fulfilled. Yeah, know that you have received it. Already be in that space for your wish to be fulfilled. And then it will be yours. That is what he taught. So now he is already connected, obviously already connected to that other dimension, to that God, being, that he wants to reveal. And the being is showing him the way. Do this, do that. He's doing things that will change his consciousness. It's not just thought, it's action as well. It's words, it's action. He's starting to do things. I mean, this story of Jesus being in the tomb with a naked youth when he was arrested. Yeah? That was the way. Doing things that, according to human consciousness, I mean, obviously you shouldn't be doing. I mean, we're looking at that now. And again, Christians are trying very hard to explain it away. No. He was not in a tomb with a naked youth. Oh, I'd say he was. He was deliberately sacrificing his human self. That was the sacrifice. He was sacrificing his human self. He was denying it. He was suppressing it. He was doing things that are obviously wrong. But it would lead to the revelation of that which is not of this world. I hope you're still with me. So he goes into the tomb, and the shift occurs in the complete stillness. Human consciousness morphs into another consciousness, energetically different from each other. And so when he comes out of the tomb, if energy creates the physical, then if the energy has changed, the physical must have changed. So it makes absolute perfect sense that he looked different. He should have done. Again, something the material mind is trying very hard to explain away. That can't be. Well, again, if you don't want to believe that, stay out of spiritual texts. Please. You have no business being there. And then comes the next part, and here that is really far out, again, to the material mind. So there was just a swap, somebody else decided to pretend to be Jesus, and then the end of the story is that Jesus marries Mary Magdalene, they have children, they go to India and live happily ever after. Well, that's the material outcome. The spiritual outcome is the ascension. And now we're going really far out. In that story, Jesus is in this world only for a short time. He is already the consciousness of New Jerusalem. He's no longer the consciousness of this world. He's already the consciousness of New Jerusalem, which is not compatible with this world. It's different. It cannot exist here. It is energetically too different to be here for any length of time anyway. And as I said before, what happened in the ascension is this world, this reality spewed him out. It spewed him out and the other sucked him out. It was like two actions going. That's far out. That is far out. But is this a spiritual story or is it not? Is there power of the Spirit? Does the Spirit create the material? Make up your mind. This is real or it's not. So let's say it's real. Jesus ended up in a different reality. Quantum shift. Something like that. Quantum leap. Into a different reality. Into New Jerusalem. And now comes the problem. The problem with Christianity is already that they're not understanding what he was doing. Where the discrepancies are coming from. If you see his desired outcome, then you can see the way. Oh God, I'm sounding like David Icke. But you can. If you see the desired outcome, you can see the way, you can see what he is doing. He's trying to rearrange his consciousness by speaking, doing, and whatever, to become the consciousness of New Jerusalem. So that is the bit that Christians don't get, for starters. They're just trying. Jesus is the Holy Lamb. He is, he's all love and compassion, and whatever goes against that has to be somehow explained away. Instead of saying there is a discrepancy there, why the hell is it there? What is he doing? And then your eyes might be open to a truth. And here comes the problem with Paul. And I said Paul was not actually a false prophet. I think he prophesied the truth. It depends on what you need to see what he was connected to. So again, this historian, those that want to dismiss Paul, First of all, they say, well, Paul never met Jesus in real life, in the physical. No, he didn't. Okay, he didn't. And then they say, well, Paul claimed to have had this connection or something, and, that this enlightenment experience. And they're actually talking down on that. Again, is this a spiritual story? Do you believe on the power of the Spirit? Do you believe that there is another reality here that we can work in? Then yes. Okay, Paul had a spiritual connection to Jesus. Reality. That is reality. That is the expanded reality that's working in the expanded reality. Do you believe or don't you? So he had a connection to Jesus. And Jesus again showed him the way. And now you must see which Jesus he was connected to. He was connected to the Jesus that was resurrected. And Paul is proclaiming that over and over again. I'm proclaiming the crucified and the resurrected Jesus. The one that went through the shift. The one that was reborn into another consciousness. That is the Jesus he's proclaiming. That Jesus is an integrated part of New Jerusalem, of the consciousness that is New Jerusalem. That is the Jesus that he is proclaiming and whose words he is speaking. Jesus will now speak not as a human being, but he will speak the truth of New Jerusalem. The Borg cube. Jesus is now speaking the truth of the Borg, because he has become an integrated part of it, his consciousness. And that is what Paul is preaching. That Jesus. The reborn Jesus. And the way to New Jerusalem. Wake up. Jesus revealed. He sacrificed his I am. His I am was human. His consciousness was human. He sacrificed his human consciousness to be rebuilt into the consciousness of New Jerusalem. That was his sacrifice. And he revealed the truth because he experienced the truth. And he told it to John. Somehow. There was still a connection there. Again, a spiritual connection. Channeling. Get out of the material if you are in this story. And if you don't believe on that, you have no business in the story. Let me say that again. You have no business in this story. You can't see it if you don't believe. So Paul is proclaiming the truth of New Jerusalem through Jesus, yes. Jesus had become. So, and then see what New Jerusalem is. See the truth that is in the story. It's a bloody Borg cube hanging in the sky. They will pour out plagues. The angels will come to slaughter the world. And no, that is not a metaphor for heaven. And that is not a depiction of love. You really have to be totally deluded to look at it. You must have already, in a way, those that say that, God is love. That is heaven. Full on slaughter, world dominion, rulership of the one, super ego that is sitting in New Jerusalem. That is heaven. I mean, to be quite honest, and here comes those that proclaim that as being love and heaven. They must have already shifted themselves somewhat from the understanding of a human consciousness into a different consciousness. Those, in a way, you can say those around you that are proclaiming it are already slipping away. And we really must get a hold on them and pull them back to earth and the spiritual truth of earth. Because that is who we are as human beings. We're not just solid beings, we are spiritual beings. We are spiritually human as well as physical. We are not that, and we should not become that. So, last thing, so if Jesus has sacrificed his truth, suppressed his truth, killed his truth, become the truth of New Jerusalem, that was his sacrifice. He did it to reveal God, what God is. He revealed that in the book of the Revelation. The only way his sacrifice can save us is by us not going there. That is bad. That is wrong. That is a way that will lead to the destruction of humanity and this world. So the only way Jesus can save us is by not going that way. By actually waking up to the truth that the outcome is bad. I mean, how hard can that be? That is evil. How hard can it be to see that? And then don't go there. That's the only way that his sacrifice will save you. Right now, if we're all going there, singing glory, hallelujah, Jesus will have died for nothing. In fact, in a roundabout way, his sacrifice will have created the very outcome that I would say he was trying to avoid. But the only way this is going to end well is by us understanding what actually happened there, what he was doing, and to believe on the power of the Spirit and wake up to it, what it is we are doing on a spiritual level, because we are creating realities. Anyway, this is where I'm at the moment. And yeah, I really wish people would wake up to the power of the Spirit and that they are powerful beings and that they are creating things to get a hold of themselves and their own powers and take responsibility. I leave it at that for today, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.